Perfect. Welcome, Trevor. How are you doing?
I'm grand, thank you.
So, I came across your work. You've been doing this since 1982, if I'm not wrong.
Professionally, yes.
If you can give some idea to the audience what you do and how you do your.
Well, I like to say I designate myself as an intuitive psychic, which means I'm predominantly connecting with the person's energy, and I get impressions from that. And it's both intuitive and instinctive. And I think that we all have aspects of those things. And then I work with the cards. I work with tarot. I brought a deck along today, and they give me a focal point. And the cards can provide some insight about possible outcomes. But I prefer to say that I'm a reader, which is not exactly the same as a fortune teller.
Okay.
Yeah. And in my approach to the work, I'm working with the impressions that just come to me with the person. And it's best when it's not somebody I really know or know much about.
So, it's best when you don't know.
Yes, because my own projections are not coming into it, you know. And we all have to have associations and relationships with one another. So when I'm getting to know people, I might prefer to send them to a colleague of mine that I trust. You know, when my cousin was having a birthday party and they wanted to have a reader there, just doing fun readings and stuff, I said, call my friend Colette. And Colette is, I say she's like my sister from another mister. And I'm happy to refer people to her. And there's some other readers like that that I encourage and have a supportive relationship with. Doing what I do for over 40 years, I think it's 44 that I've been reading professionally, you reach a point where you just really don't want to be competitive. And it's really like an art form where you respect other people's approach and they have their niche and I have mine. So it's a beautiful thing to have colleagues, not competitors.
Interesting.
I like that.
You said it's like an art form.
To me it is.
And would you say, like any art form, it evolves over time?
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, part of what I do is I relate people's energy, to my own experience and the experience of others. So, you know, I may get an impression and say, you know, this feels a lot like what I've seen, you know, in this situation or that situation.
Okay.
And I can make an association to that, and usually people are able to relate to it. But this is also why, you know, we get inspiration from music, we get inspiration from stories, we get things like that. So I'm partly like a storyteller. And the art of being a reader is a combination of that intuition and inspiration and relating it. And in some ways, it's like letting a person know that their experience is unique. It is their own. But in some practices that I've found helpful for myself, there's a meditation practice called Tonglen, and it's a compassion practice.
It's called?
Tonglen, Tonglen.
Okay.
Very well-known writer, Pamela Coleman, who has been very helpful for me in reading her books and her own videos and things, talks about the practice of when something difficult arises, to pause and say, others feel this too. I'm not alone in this. And there's the ability to wish for compassion for others going through these things, and in so doing, we grant some to ourselves.
Very interesting. A year ago, I came across this energy chakras and auras.
Yes.
And since then, I used to be a person who would lie every now and then. Thanks to my wife, I've become a much more honest person now. And that honesty has bring one more thing in my life, which is stronger predictability
I said earlier, because Dee is sitting here, you introduced me to your lovely wife. I said, it says something about a man's integrity when he's willing to be open to a reading in front of his wife. So we know you've been a good boy.
I have my own flaws,
We
let
all
me
do,
admit,
we all
and
do.
I'm not perfect by any means. But since I started saying true stuff or whatever is in my mind, or let's say being less dishonest or not dishonest at all, I've realized I've been able to have a stronger gut feeling, if that makes sense.
I'm going to tell you that I don't usually just do readings out of the blue, and I don't do readings, usually in the context of an interview. But I can say what comes to me. And what comes to me is that you are waking up into your own paternal energy. And you're going to be a father figure, especially, with even before your own children are grown to this point. You're going to be able to be sort of a helpful influence to some younger men that want to be, rascals, and you'll be able to be supportive and encouraging towards them. And I think, in addition to your own children, I think you will probably be like a godfather. Like sometimes I have a friend who's in his 80s. He has 3 daughters.
Okay.
No, pardon me. He has 3 daughters. I can't remember the number exactly. But he also has mentored a lot of men. He has been like a coach, like a mentor to a lot of men. So he has that very strong paternal energy. And without being a father, he is like a godfather.
It is a big word, being father to someone, taking care of a life on its own.
You are being embraced by not just your own blood family, but an extended sense of family, where I think you and your wife will have an open door to other kids that will want to
I
come
would
and
love
hang out
to
at your
help.
house. Yeah, absolutely.
I get goosebumps when I think if
You
I.
have to be careful, because sometimes I think you'd be inclined to say, "Oh, Auntie D wouldn't like that." And she's like, "Why do I have to be the bad cop? Why do
That still happens. That happens sometimes even.
Yeah. She'd be like, "I want to be mischievous," and you have a very good chemistry with one another. But that's just what I'm feeling instinctively and intuitively, which is not the same as saying you're going to go to Calgary and live on a house on a corner of a street.
I think a lot of people confuse it with that. When they say read me, they want certain future, like what are the events that are about to happen.
What did you have for breakfast? And it's interesting that sometimes things like that do come out of left field.
Okay.
And I can't always explain it. I grew up, I hadn't finished growing up, but when I was little, let's put it that way, because I'm not little anymore, my mother and my aunts liked to read each other's tea leaves. And, in Winnipeg, because we have such a beautiful sense of cultures, both in our own families and within our sense of community. And they would be reading each other's tea leaves, and they'd be doing this, just for fun. But at times things would come through that were very strong. And this was like a folk art. And Winnipeg reading has elements of that. There's a style we have here that I know from that background. And they'd be reading each other, and they'd be getting, into it. But my father was more skeptical.
Okay.
And there is such a thing as healthy skepticism.
100%.
He'd be listening and carrying on, and he'd look over his newspaper and he'd go, "Yeah, even a stopped clock is right twice a day."
He'd say that.
Yeah. So it's like, take this with a grain of salt. Take this as something constructive, but don't get carried away. And I think that was important. And I think, when we were kids, we weren't allowed to be in the room so much because children are very impressionable.
True.
And you have to be able to take this with a degree of questioning. And it is up to the person to apply it to a degree. So, a reading can't live your life for you. And there's 2 questions that have automatic answers.
2 questions that have automatic answers.
Yeah. Can I trust? And you're asking the question, which means whether the situation's trustworthy or not, you cannot trust right now because you're asking the question. And to respect that in a way and go, wait a minute, if you've just met somebody, maybe you're not supposed to trust right away.
100%, yeah.
Can you back up a little bit and just pay attention to your own instincts and your own feelings? And the other question that has an automatic answer is there hope?
Hope.
Is there hope? And if you're asking the question, it means on some level there is. These questions are self-evident. So I think part of my job is to help people recognize that their questions are valid, they're useful, and for the reading to not make your decisions for you, but to maybe lend some perspective. Something that I think has come with being in my 60s. And I also live a life where I have a lot of people around me that are on journeys of discovery and learning, and I love being approachable to that. But I've learned, partly with a little bit of the meditation that I've dabbled in, to respect uncertainty. Because we live in a consumer-based society.
We like certain things.
You should want to live in Lindenwoods. You should want the new Ford Lexus. You should want to choose this and this and this.
Yeah,
right?
100%.
As opposed to, hey, check this out. And if it feels right for you, then we can look at getting that set up. And if you can bless your uncertainty a little bit.
Can I stop you right there for a second? I've always questioned, is it the modern society likes everything planned? That we are kicking out the uncertainty and want everything to be certain?
Well, we're getting into opinions here. I think that there's always been elements in society that have wanted to make people feel uncomfortable with their uncertainty. Because if you can make them uncomfortable with their uncertainty, then you can go with the sales pitch and say, you should want this.
They can play your uncertainty.
I have a friend, she works in sales. And this is the same friend that first encouraged me to apply for a job as a reader. And I was barely 18 years old. I was a high school dropout, but I had a theater background as well. And we were sitting in a restaurant where there was readings going on. And this friend said, you could do this. And it's interesting because she is a very strong critical thinker.
Okay.
She takes things with a grain of salt. And she's the one who encouraged me to fill out that job application. And they took a chance on a kid. It was a really strange situation that I got my start. And that's when I started reading at the chocolate shop. And that was a well-known environment. But where was I going with this?
We were talking about the uncertainty.
Yes.
And people.
Yeah. She works, in part of her background, she's worked in sales.
Okay.
And she has fun with it. She'll say to people, browsing time was over an hour ago. It's selling time. Can we get down to business in terms of finding you what you need? And she says it in such a way that you feel she's an ally. And she'll say, yeah, no, we don't have that. Go over there. Tell them I sent you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But she has confidence in what she's selling, that it can be a right fit for the person. And she develops a relationship of trust in that way. And I've learned from people like that. People like that have been my mentors.
How much part did your mom and auntie play?
My mom and my aunties. Well, my mom was one of 9 children. Born during the Depression. And she was in her later 30s when she had me. I am one of 4 boys, but I'm the youngest. So I have 3 older brothers, and each of them was influential, and my dad. Although my parents did separate, in my elementary school years, but my mother was a very strong influence, and always encouraging to me. Anytime any of myself or my cousins, and I had an incredible godfather as well, one of her brothers, and my dad. But anytime something came along that was a little controversial about any of us kids, they'd say, well, if that's what you're going to do and if that's who you are, be good at it. Because our family is supporting you.
That means the world.
Yeah. But that's also why, doing things like this, I always have to think, oh, they're watching. And even though now that they're past, oh, they're watching. So I want to be respectful to that and to that support. And part of why I also, sorry, I don't want to hijack this, but part of why I wanted to do this interview is I did have some time away from my work in the last few years.
Okay.
So I'm still around, I'm still alive, but I came back from I had a major health recovery. And I'm blessed in that I can work from home right now, and I can do some work online. And my work was waiting for me to come back to it. So it's just nice to let people know I'm still around if I'm what you're looking for. And if people are looking for another kind of reading, I can sometimes refer them to others that I know of.
In this field. Interesting.
Yeah.
How much of... I'd like to make a distinction between how much intuition and how much of the instincts play a role in someone's life, or in the sense...
Well, I think this is interesting too, in that the whole field of my work has really come into a very different phase. When I first started reading, here, and I'll unwrap my cards so I can get them out while I'm talking to you.
Sure.
And this is an interesting little custom. It's traditional to wrap tarot cards in silk. And part of that, they believe, was silk keeps out outside vibrations. But that may be so. But I also like the fact that long, long ago, your grandmothers would have wrapped anything in parchment, whether it was a scroll or a book. They would have wrapped it in silk because it keeps out...
That's fine, yeah.
Are we okay?
Yeah.
Okay. It keeps out mites and things like that would cause the cards to deteriorate. So I love that the superstitions also have some practical application in terms of that. So I wrap my cards in silk, and I used to knot the silk, but then I had some of my mother's old scarf pins, and then I get hat pins, and it's just a nice custom, and it's a way of being respectful to the cards. This is what is known as a Smith-Waite tarot deck, and Waite is spelled W-A-I-T-E. Right? Many people know it as the Rider-Waite tarot deck. That's probably the most popular tarot deck in existence, and more artists base their designs on this deck than any other. Really, there's many other decks that I work with from time to time, but I love this deck. The original artist, Pamela Coleman Smith, was working with the guidance and direction of a man named Arthur Edward Waite. And it was in the early 1900s in England, and they were in a group called the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. And those people were using tarot, not so much for fortune telling, but as means of identifying and relating the cards to aspects of life and of ourselves. And it was around that time that there was the revolutions in psychology and things like that, like Carl Jung and the interest in archetypes and so forth. So they were working with esoteric and occult symbolism, largely Western occult symbolism, as a tool for self-understanding and transformation. And it was contained within that culture. But there were influences like another fellow in the Order of the Golden Dawn, Aleister Crowley, who was quite radical. He was a bad boy.
Okay.
He leaked the secrets, and he was very controversial. He was. He and Arthur Edward Waite had a really funny rivalry. They were a little like divas, Waite and Pamela Coleman Smith created this deck for use within that more private realm. So the deck wasn't published until a few years later, and Rider was just the publishing company that had the rights to it. Pamela herself, this young woman, was paid a pittance, and she didn't get much recognition. And years later, this is the most influential tarot deck in existence. So it's nice to remember her. It's nice to give her credit. Pamela Coleman Smith. And her friends called her Pixie. And, yeah, she was a gifted illustrator. She was in the theater world, and I was a theater baby.
Can we find her picture, Pamela?
Pamela Coleman Smith. Yeah. And she was in the theater world. She was a scenic designer as well as a costume designer. So her attention to details in wardrobe are fascinating. And nowadays there's all kinds of tarot websites and things like that where people have discussions about tarot and they analyze the different things. And sometimes people want to definitively know, well, does it mean this or does it mean that?
Yeah.
And I don't teach. I respect the people that do, but I've mentored a few people. And let's say, but can't I just ask you a yes or no question? And I go, it depends. Because it's what does it say to you in that instance, in that time? Now, there's archetypes. So the Emperor, for instance, would be an interesting card for you because it's got daddy energy to it. And it has to do with the paternal. It can have to do also with the patriarchal.
Okay.
So this is not a card so much that describes a person. Oops. It's not a card that describes a person, but it describes an archetype. So the archetype of the patriarchal and of the paternal. So this might be talking about like a bureaucratic work situation. If you were working for the government or in a system like that, it would have some of those elements to it. But I think we're moving through a time now where we're looking at, when we hear about the patriarchy these days, and a lot of times people are like, oh, the patriarchy. It's because there's been a disconnect from the paternal. We've lost something. And this is me being opinionated. Right? I'm not talking about definitive interpretation. But I think as we can heal the paternal, maybe we will have a better balance of the matriarchal and the patriarchal.
I think, I can to some extent agree with that. We're saying maybe I'm not saying in the right words, the father figure is missing in a lot of lives, and that is causing a mayhem overall in the social fabric.
Absolutely. So if we can have better paternal energy that is working harmoniously, I'm looking over at D-Wave and aligning with the matriarchal.
Can I ask you something?
Sure.
Do you think it's part of the propaganda? Again, you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but part of the propaganda where we have put men versus women, or like female against men and all that, and that is destroying the harmony in some sense?
Well, I think there's definitely a lot that has to. I think there's a whole lot that has to be like a pendulum, moving back and forth. I'm not a cultural visionary. I think there's other people that are better suited to those roles. But I think there's something beautiful that happens when we start looking for and finding the elements where we're parenting ourselves, and then we can share that with other people, and being healthier influences. I'm never going to be a parent, but I've blessed to be an uncle, and I have a kind of godfatherly relationship with some people.
Interesting. Yeah, you put it in a very cool way, pendulum instead of.
Absolutely, yeah. So these are the cards, and Pamela herself was a storyteller.
Okay.
She grew up as a child in Barbados. That's why I like to choose different silks for my cards, and this one has little parrots on it because she grew up in Barbados and she loved to dress in cultural garb, like a woman, not a witch, but like a woman sorcerer, and she would come to parties and tell folk tales. Yeah, and I think the picture of her, there's oftentimes one of the popular pictures of her. She's wearing sort of like a scarf and turban, and she had a beautiful nature, a beautiful sense of humor. There, that picture there, that one, yes, that's Pixie, Pamela Coleman Smith. Yeah, yes, and she enjoyed the theatrical. Yeah, look at her. She's wearing her glad rags. Yeah, indeed. So I like to wrap her deck in the silk with the parrots on it. And she was very drawn to the folklore of her childhood. And I, as a child, was very drawn to mythology. And I couldn't read Dick and Jane, like standard elementary school primers. And we didn't know back then about things like ADHD. And quite probably I have ADHD. Because if you give me a book to read, I won't read it. But if you leave it out and tell me that's for grown-ups, I'm going to read it. I'm going to look at it. I'm going to, what's in here? And my brother Dan particularly, and my brother Ben, but Dan is an artist. And if he was painting, I was allowed to be in his room, but I had to be quiet. And he'd give me something to read. And my other brother, Ben, would explain things to me. He was always the one explaining things too. And I remember Dan teaching me how to play chess by just looking at the tops of the pieces. And it tells you how they move. The bishop has a diagonal line.
So it moves diagonal.
The castle has the 4 horizontal lines. The queen has a crown with points in all directions. So you just look at it and it tells you something.
That's interesting.
And I remember when I was really still a kid, him taking me down to the legislative building in Winnipeg. Beautiful, beautiful building. And it's all built along Masonic designs, right?
Yes.
Which is the foundation of Western esoteric mysticism. But he didn't explain things to me. I went, well, what does it mean? He goes, what does it say to you? What is this suggesting to you? And you start looking at that. And then you look at other people's interpretations. It's like, okay, I can agree with that. No, that is something that means just this to me. But that's developing a relationship with the symbolic language.
For folks who don't understand what esoteric means, if you quickly like to, or
okay, I should be able to put that in a concise answer. Well, to me, esoteric means this suggests something. This evokes something. And again, this is where when you start getting into things like archetypes, like Jungian archetypes, and there's many interpretations of tarot that have been utilizing that more and more because it lends itself well to those systems. But it's not that tarot started that. It's just that tarot lends itself well to the esoteric. Occult means hidden wisdom, amongst other things. I can't give you a dictionary answer right off the top. But there's systems that are tied into those things. There's systems that I don't work with, like some people who are interested in ceremonial magic. Some people spell that with a K at the end. But these are things that are designed to evoke and inspire growth along those lines. I am not an occult practitioner. It's just not how I roll. I have personally, in my background, a broad-based spirituality. And I believe the Creator, which is what I usually choose to say, has different names to different people. You know, just as like some people call you Raj.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there is one God, but we've given him different names, or like there's one creator. I personally, when someone asks me what I believe in, I say, I like to believe there's a universe and there's forces in the universe that gets this all around us,
Right.
destroys it, makes it again in ways that we don't fully understand.
And in a practical application, like I look at the things I have learned, and the things that have saved my life in recovery-based practice. You know, whether you're breaking from an addiction or breaking from a familial pattern, it's necessary to work with some concept of a higher power. My Buddhist friends say there are three jewels: the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. So the idea of the figure, the community, and the teachings. And this works in different ways with different things. But that recovery-based approach, you know, where you're learning to be present with your instincts, you know, and they don't have the jump on you, like your fears or your attractions, and to be able to be more aware, more open to the experience of other people, so that they don't have the jump on you. You know, I know when COVID started, for instance, and there was this great atmosphere of uncertainty and fear, I picked up the phone and I called my friend Jim, and he said, "Yeah, I knew you were going to call." I said, "Jim, you know what this is like?" And he goes, "Yeah, this is like the 80s when we didn't know what was going on, and it was scary and people were reactive." And he was talking about the AIDS crisis.
Yeah.
And we both lost people and stuff. But he said, we didn't get to stay home and get CERB payouts and watch Netflix. We had to carry on.
That's right.
But also we get to be allies. You know, when you can understand the fear that's present in a situation and go, "Oh yeah, I know this. I've been around this." It doesn't mean you have it all figured out, but it doesn't have the jump on you. You know, I say David Bowie in one of his songs said, "Same old thing in brand new drag comes sweeping into view." And he's talking about fears and fear-based patterns. And when we can go, "Oh yeah, I know this," we're able to be allies and resources to people going through that.
You say the instinct doesn't have to jump on you. That means, does it mean, let's say sometimes people would say that it was just instinct and I did that in the moment.
Sometimes, yes. But, you know, like my mom and my aunts used to say, "Don't go grocery shopping when you're hungry." Stop. You know, Dee would know this. She's laughing. But it's like sometimes when we haven't been comfortable with our instincts and our attractions, and we have insecurity, and something comes along that's really distracting.
Yeah.
It's like, "Oh, okay, well that's nice, but whoa, pull back." You know? And you know, often when I'm reading, I think it's also being in my 60s. Like things come back to me. You know, we just had Father's Day, so I was thinking about my father. And it's like things these people have said or things that I've read, they come through in a way that help me to see what is going on, and it's a reference point to something. Because they'd say, "Don't go grocery shopping when you're hungry." This is what my mom and my aunts would say to my female cousins. And they later said it to me. But they meant, don't just grab the most distracting person and attach all of your energy to that. And they also used to say something funny too, and I say this sometimes in readings. Don't play the field, own the field. It's your field. It's the field of your attention. And that's where you look at how well a person's getting along with other people. I remember one of my aunties saying, when you're out on a date, watch how he treats the waitress.
That's an important one.
He's shaking, he's nodding her head. Because it's like, yeah, that's somebody's daughter. And that's, again, being able to be a little more comfortable with your uncertainty. Say, I'm having the opportunity to learn something. And you've made the right choice when you feel more comfortable about choice making. I use humor in what I do, you can tell. But when some people want to just get the choice over with, choose crack. You won't have to make another choice. It's like, I mean, that's a bad joke, but no, yeah. Like, if you can go, okay, this is worth looking at. And it's like, I think about, I mentioned earlier, my friend who's in sales, who's confident enough about what she's, dealing with, that she doesn't have to oversell. She's able to go, hey, this is here. Maybe you need to go and talk to somebody at that place, but you come back. But you know what? I'm going to carry on now because there's some other people that have just come onto the sales floor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How much do you think, let's say, I've faced this personally in my life. My human mind doesn't allow me to be in this moment now. Keeps up thinking about past and the future.
Yeah. Well, you're learning to center. I can tell that. You're learning to be centered and to go, yes, the future and the past are reference points. But look, there's a dandelion growing through the concrete. Okay, I'm going to give that some attention. And then it becomes symbolic of something. It's just a dandelion, but it becomes symbolic of something other than that, reactive.
I read this somewhere, where attention goes, energy flows.
That's a good one, yeah.
And earlier you mentioned, don't play the field. It's
own the field.
Own the field.
It's the field of your attention. And pay attention to the person who shows up and who's cooperative and supportive and gets along with things. Yeah.
And sometimes we have these times in our lives where we think we're very lonely, let's say.
Yes.
Right? And we think we don't have anyone around us to help us through our tough times.
Well, pause for a moment first and recognize that state doesn't mean you're a loser. That state doesn't mean you're disqualified. That state is why there's country western music. Or the blues, or art, or any number of things that can speak to people. And if you can honor it first off and go, okay, I'm not going to just listen to the blues, but I'm going to listen to some good blues. Or I'm going to listen to some Leonard Cohen or some poetry. And I can see that where I am is valid. Then I'm in a better position to navigate from there. We tend to think about our progress as linear, from like point A to point B. But if you can think of it, this is going to sound mystical, but if you can think of it instead like a ripple expanding on a lake, that there's a sense of a greater peripheral vision. And then we can say, wait a minute, this resonates with this or that resonates with that.
It's not point A to B.
No.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know what? I'm going to probably find this uncertainty again, but I know where the washrooms are. I can, and that's an interesting thing, because I heard a woman say once at a recovery conference, she said, you might be new and think you don't have much to offer others, but if you know where the bathrooms are and you can point, how dare you sit on that information?
That's valuable information.
And the moment we can say, how can this be useful to others, some beautiful things start to happen.
And I've seen people having issues with not trusting each other, including me at points.
Well, you're not supposed to.
Really?
Yeah.
But we've been.
I think you're supposed to have some self-ownership,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have to gauge a person's capacity.
And then.
Yeah. You know, you wouldn't let a 5-year-old play with knives.
First, you want to see.
Yeah, let's see your capacity, and I think that there's a point in finding people trustworthy where you have to trust your own worth. It begins with some self-accountability.
And how much role does self-esteem plays in all this?
Oh, that's a good one. You've been doing some work. Yeah, self-esteem, your self-estimation, which is different from pride. Self-estimation. It's like if you want a puppy, don't get a cat. You know, it's not fair. You could call it Rover. There are some weird cats that'll chase a frisbee and bring it back.
There are cats who would love to swim too, yeah.
But it's unusual. And it's not that puppies are worth more than cats, but their values are different. Values from, this is me. I'm talking a lot today just from my own opinionated nature and kind. You know, it's not dollar value. You know, sometimes, you know, when somebody goes through a breakup and others say, "Oh, you're worth more than that," I try not to say that because nobody's worth more than someone else. But you're worth something else than that. And when we can work with the idea of a higher power that has an idea or a plan for us, and if we can be open to that, then we can relax a little. You know? We can kind of not be lured by temptation, but we can work with temperance, which is one of the cards in the deck. And temperance is, wait a minute, what would be the right instinctive fulfillment? You know, what would be better than that for me? Yeah.
And I always had issues maintaining a self-esteem in some aspects, and maybe you can help me watch things with a different lens.
Well, I wouldn't want to help you too much.
Okay.
Yeah, because, you know, I love the fact that your wife is here. Because I remember when I was in a circle of people who were learning a lot about healing and getting on a better path, because that's a path that I've had to be on myself and still am on. One of the guys who was the facilitator, the mentor there, dearly beloved man, you know, he was letting people ask questions, and this one guy goes, "I just wish I could have some self-confidence with women." and the old guy looked at him and just smiled and chuckled. He says, "You know, maybe your uncertainty and shyness is one of your few attractive features." Which it was thought-provoking, you know, like maybe you're where you're supposed to be for right now, and what would you do with that confidence, really? And that's where the self-esteem becomes less a bravado. It becomes less of an act. It becomes more of a sense of befriending yourself.
More of a feature.
Yeah, in the meditation stuff, particularly, I gotta say, reading Pema Chodron at one time really saved me. Different things have
Reading what?
Pema, Pemachhodron, and she's a Buddhist nun. Her name wasn't always Pema Chodron, but you know, she's working with these states and going, no, this is valuable. You know, you don't have to get rid of it, but you can relax. You can be a little more open. And you know, I sometimes when I'm reading for people, they go, "I don't know why I'm suddenly feeling emotional." Maybe because you're feeling that this is a safe enough place to let something come forward that you've been carrying. You know? So, but I tell them when they reach for the Kleenex, others feel this too. You know? And if you can honor that, then you're getting somewhere.
Interesting. I believe we're missing empathy in the society, to be honest, because what someone does is his business, and whatever they do
Yeah.
onto them. And
I'm going to be a little opinionated and provocative because you can tell I am.
sure, go ahead.
You know, nowadays you can do a Facebook questionnaire and diagnose yourself and diagnose others. And when all this narcissist and empath stuff started, I think it can be useful to identify things, but we got to be careful, you know, because I think everyone has aspects. Sometimes they're more pronounced, but you know, a person can be very sensitive to the vulnerabilities of others, and maybe they're an empath, maybe they're a predator. It's interesting. Like I like to question a little bit, and I think I certainly have narcissistic qualities, and I have to check that. My friend in sales, I'm gonna have to take her for lunch soon. I'm mentioning her. She'll suddenly say, "Trev, you need a checkup from the neck up." And she can help me come down to earth a little bit, but you know, I think the tendency to be looking at some things in cultural stuff about where we may be ego driven, it's important to identify that, you know? And to maybe get to a place where we have a healthier ego, healthier self-estimation, and to be empathetic, to kind of go, okay, I don't know what that person's feeling, because that's an imposed empathetic perception. To go, oh, I know just what you feel. No, I have a sense of what you feel, and I want to learn more. So I want to be open to what you feel. Right? You tell somebody you know how they feel.
Isn't that narcissist too?
I think it is.
Right?
Yeah. So to be open and to go, okay, you have your own variation with this. You look at musicians and artists that are secure in themselves, that are able to jam with other artists. And I think this is the kind of thing you aspire to be. You know, like the Traveling Wilburys. You know, that was Roy Orbison, and a bunch of guys like George Harrison that all had achieved in their field. And they just wanted to jam with these other guys and appreciate their artistry.
Yeah.
Nowadays, there's the Hollywood Vampires and Alice Cooper. He's a man who knows how to laugh at his own persona. You know? And Alice Cooper, you know, the grandfather of goth, is touring. He wants to play golf. You know? And it's like nothing to prove but appreciating that artistry with one another. I don't know how I got off on that, but there you go.
And I don't know how should I ask this, but I wanted to make more sense of it. I read this book called Codex Esoterica a year ago. And in the book, it said you should try to break down words to better understand them, such as freedom. So getting free from a dome, that it could be a dome that you perceive, or it could be an actual dome that you build around your personality or something, or other words that can be broken down.
Words are powerful, and they can become iconic. They can become like a file heading in your mind. And obsessions are like that. You know, when we have a person that we're really hung up on and we just can't get rid of it, and it's frustrating. But we're also creating a pattern when we get caught in that loop. And sometimes if we can just have like someone that we can talk to openly and bring these things forward, we can get some insight as to not figuring that person out, well, who do I become in that situation? How am I behaving? What am I needing to reinforce again and again and again for myself? And what happens if I could just let go a bit and let that open up? So I think, yeah, words have power. And I think that, we're getting a little better at being sensitive, in our culture to things.
What do you mean? Getting better at being sensitive?
I think I don't have to understand something to go, that word is not comfortable for them. I'm not going to use that word. And, checking our language. Where am I being unconsciously fixed in a position? And it isn't until somebody goes, when you use that word, and to go, oh, okay, right on. I don't have to impose in that way.
Yeah. No, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. I mean, there's always, certain points as these things move forward where I have to remember to stop, pause, and breathe and not roll my eyes. Oh, here we go again with the political correctness. Da, 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 da. And I never thought I'd be one of those old guys to even say that. And I go, okay.
It's interesting. Yeah, I mean, if someone gets hurt from certain words, why not switch them with other words? But to what degree is my question? You don't want to change the whole vocabulary and get all messed up.
Right.
But where do we draw the line is also a good question too.
Yeah. Or even just to be able to say, the lines are blurry here, so I think I'm going to play over here.
Fair enough, yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I think I got to remember that I'm still a work in progress, and I'm open to those exchanges. And I'm blessed to have younger people that have sometimes said, Trev, you need to check up from the neck up. Come on.
That's a cool line. I'll be using that moving forward. Check up from the neck up.
Check yourself before you wreck yourself. So, yeah, I sometimes like a good rant. I like to get on my little soapbox and have a little rant about something. And the loving people around my life go, are you done? Is that enough? Can we carry on with something else? And the men that I know that mentor other men, and really they do it in such a way, and the women I know that mentor other women, and so on and so forth. I'm like a double agent. I do both. But they don't call you so much on your crap. They call you on your worth. You get really worked up about something and they'll go, yeah, but I think you're better than that. I think you're capable of being more compassionate than that. And it's like, oh, all right. And
I think, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes a whole lot of sense. The way you mentioned it, they're not calling on your crap, they're calling on your self-worth or...
Yeah, and appealing to that. Going, come on, work with me here.
Tell me one thing, how much does ego gets in between of, let's say, if you are trying to understand someone?
Do you know what? One of the Christian authors that I dearly love is C.S. Lewis. He wrote those wonderful Narnia books. He was good friends with J.R.R. Tolkien, and Tolkien was very foundational. I couldn't read Dick and Jane, but I could read Tolkien. I could read Norse myths, Icelandic, and I could read, a lot of things because they spoke to me. The folk tales, they spoke to me. But C.S. Lewis said, humility is not, attractive people trying to convince themselves they're ugly, intelligent men trying to convince themselves they're stupid. God would rather you thought you were the best cathedral builder in the world, so long as it gets built. And then once it's built, delight in it the way you would a tree, a waterfall, or an elephant. And he said, it doesn't much matter what your position in the temple of fame, so long as it gets built. And then Another thing that I was encouraged to read was William James' Varieties of Religious Experience. And he says the veracity of a spiritual experience isn't necessarily in its drama, but in what it motivates you to do. So, if it's something that encourages you to be a better friend, a better brother, a better father.
A good person in general.
Yeah, exactly. That's, to me, it's merit. So, yeah, it's interesting. I didn't know, but I had the feeling that I was supposed to come and do this today. And I think it's been an interesting forum for us to discuss things.
Yeah.
I'm going to want to come back,
Interesting. I won't take much of your time. And
I'm glad for the time we've had.
before we go, can I ask you for something? Can you tell me some more meanings of the card before?
All right. You wanted me to do a reading on the air, and I don't generally like to do that. But just as food for thought, just for fun.
Please.
Let's do this little thing, just a cut. So cut them once. Then once again. And one last time. There we are. Oh, 8 of Swords. Well, 8s oftentimes have to do with how we're identifying with a state. And this is a card because swords also have to do with air or mental energy. This can have to do with a state where we are so preoccupied with something that we're blindfolded. Right? But the figure's standing on a beach and the tide is going to come in, and that's going to be what sets her free. So it's interesting because it's oftentimes a state of some resistance, and then being open to that moving forward. I don't use the cards to try and diagnose health. I don't feel that that's my calling. I'm not a holistic practitioner. But sometimes there are some mental states that can actually influence our physical well-being, of course. So this can be that checkup from the neck up. This can be that check yourself before you wreck yourself, because we can be so occupied with that almost like mental attempt to control an emotional state that we're getting sick or stressed. Yeah. And then you have the card of many choices. And this is the card where I say, don't play the field, own the field. And you may have been having to make some important decisions about people's proximity in your life. Not about judging them as good or bad, but would you leave them minding the store? Or would you leave them looking after a little kid? And just looking at where the appropriate places for those things stand. And I think you've probably had a period in the last 2 years where you've been more stringent with that. In terms of saying, no, we are now at a stage where we need to be, operating on that level. So that's just some food for thought.
Fair enough.
And I hope it's helpful.
It is indeed. And thank you so much, Trevor, for your time. And I had a crazy good conversation.
It was great. Like I said, I'm going to want to come back.
And 100%, 6 months down the line, I'd love to have you back.
Okay.
Before we...
That wasn't a reading. That was just a demonstration of how
I wanted to understand the cards myself.
Absolutely. Good.
And before we proceed, would you like to let people know where they can find you and
absolutely.
how can they reach out to you?
You can go to my website, trevorsense.com. And I have a YouTube channel, Trevor Psychic Intuitive, Winnipeg-based Trevor Psychic Intuitive. Because some of my videos from the 2000 teens were titled Tarot with Trevor. There's another Tarot with Trevor out there in the United States. He does predictions about politicians and things like that. That's not me. No. But we were getting confused for a while there. And I think he's put his contact information on his channel, so that's getting sorted out. There's enough business for everyone. I don't need to trade on that. But trevorsense.com is my website.
Perfect.
Trevor Psychic Intuitive is my Facebook and my Instagram.
I'll add the link in the YouTube description. Thank you. Hopefully